everyone, welcome to a sip and dip tutorial. Before we jump into today's video, just a couple of safety things around resin. You should be wearing your gloves that are often provided. If possible, long clothing to cover most of your skin and some safety goggles if you have them as well. Any hair should be tied back out of the way as well. If you do happen to get resin in your eyes, ears, nose, mouth or anywhere on your skin, make sure you thoroughly rinse it off, and if you have any further issues, seek further medical advice. We do have a safety data sheet on our website. If you scroll down to the bottom, it'll be down the bottom there. We do ask that you thoroughly read through it and understand all of the conditions around resin before you jump into this video. Other than that, let's get started. Alrighty, so today I am going to be talking you through adding your layer of resin over work that you have already done. So we often do this for take-home packs with resin if you've done alcohol ink. So for example, we've done alcohol ink here on this tray, and then we're going to add that take-home pack of resin over the top to make it a little bit more durable and a little bit more luxe as well. So you'll have your cup to mix your resin in, your biggest spatula, obviously your work that you're going to be recoating, and then your pre-poured resin as well. Now we're going to empty those containers of resin into our cup. We want to make sure that we're scraping down the sides and getting all or as much as possible of that resin out of our containers. This is pre-poured resin, so our ratio is nice and even when we pour it for you. So we want to make sure that we're scraping it to keep that ratio nice and even. If our ratio is thrown out, we're going to have unsafe resin. So scraping as much as possible out of those containers. And you can just stack those cups, pop them to the side, and they're going to go in the bin later. So it doesn't matter what part resin you put in first, as long as all 3 of those containers or 2 of those containers are emptied into the cup and those containers have been scraped out. Now when you're mixing your resin, a couple of important notes. You want to make sure that you are only holding the top of your cup and it is nice and flat on your surface that you're working with. The reason why we're holding the top is because if we cup the side, it's going to be too warm. It's going to get too warm for what it's ready for. And the reason why we keep it flat on our table is just to avoid any spillage and so that we get a nice even stir throughout our cup. When we're mixing, spatula's touching the bottom of our cup at all times, and we're just working at about this speed here. So we're not going too fast because we don't want too many air bubbles, particularly if we're doing a nice clear coat over our work. And we're not going too slow, otherwise our resin's going to start setting before it's even properly stirred together. As you start mixing your resin, you'll be able to see the 2 different parts in your cup. So you'll be able to see some kind of silky lines following your spatula and it'll look quite cloudy. We're going to keep mixing until it's nice and clear and you can't tell the difference between the 2 parts in your cup because they're nice and mixed together. As you're stirring, you want to make sure you stop a couple of times just to scrape the outsides of your cup. You'll find that the thicker part of your resin has a bit of a habit of sticking to the edge, so you want to make sure that you're scraping it back into the center of your resin so that you're not going to have any bits unmixed on the sides. Alrighty, so when your resin is ready, you won't be able to see the two parts, the difference between the two parts. It will be nice and mixed, obviously. So you won't have any of those lines kind of following your spatula. Easy way to kind of tell that as well is to give the sides a scrape, and if you don't see any silky lines come into the center, then you're all good. As well as pulling up your stick and letting it run like this. If you can't see two different parts through that dribble, then you are good to go. What you want to do is scrape that spatula on the side of your cup and then just pop it to the side. That way we're not inclined to scrape this cup. If we've got any bits of resin sitting around the outside that's not quite mixed through and then we scrape it onto our tray, it's gonna not stick. You're gonna have soft spots. So no scraping this cup. If you're working with something that isn't going to be dribbling off the edge, so like this tray is nice and contained, I am going to start filling in the very edges of my board first and then put the rest in the center. It just makes it a little bit easier when it comes to getting those bits of resin nice and close to the edge. So really small dribble, nice and close to the edge. And then you can kind of fill in the rest of the space with what's left. Spreading it out as much as possible is going to make it much easier when it comes to getting a nice even spread and getting it to move faster as well. Adding that to the side, and then I'm just going to pick up my tray and let it run to fill in those edges. Nice and easy, so this is just about covered already. Just like that. Now resin is self-leveling, so once you have done this process, you need to make sure that you put your tray somewhere nice and flat because your resin will continue to self-level. So if you go and put this somewhere and it's sitting like this, all your resin's going to end up down one end. So you want it somewhere nice and flat and as even as possible. If you find when you've turned your board it's gone up on the edges a little bit, you can simply grab a baby wipe or an alcohol wipe is best and just run that along the edge and tidy up any little bits. Same with anything along the edges here, you can just wipe it up before it sets. Other than that, your board should be dry to touch within the next 24 hours. If it's cold weather, I would wait 48 hours. And then it will be cured in 7 days. If it's cold weather, I would wait 14 days. After that, it is good to use however you please. Thanks guys.